For the last part of our mini-series on rational operations, which is fraction operations, we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing fractions. The good news is, of the two, this is the easier one. So in the last video, we talked about how to add and subtract fractions, both with like and unlike denominators. Now we're talking about multiplying and dividing. Your lifeguard perspective is, in general, multiplying and dividing have the same type of rules, meaning they do not need like denominators. They're welcome to have like denominators, but it's not mandatory. So that's what we're going to work on. We're going to do some examples of multiplying and dividing. We're going to multiply first, and then we'll talk about dividing, and I'll give you a hint right now. You may already know this. Dividing fractions turns into a multiplying problem. We're even going to talk about a shortcut that you can use in multiplying fractions. The shortcut's not mandatory, but it does make your life easier. So we'll do plenty of examples without the shortcut, then we'll do a few with the shortcut and see how you like it, because it really does become your best friend, especially when you have some awkwardly sized fractions. Let's do this. So a quick little example just to show you what I'm talking about. If we're multiplying fractions, you literally just go straight across. That's the best part. So remember, this little dot down here means multiply, or it might sometimes be a little X or things like that. So, didn't mean to erase that. So it could be one or the other. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go straight across. Literally, I'll even draw arrows to remind you for a few of the questions. So those are just arrows. Going straight across. Okay, so 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8, so your top number is an 8. Go on the bottom. 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. By the way, this is one of those situations where knowing your times tables really comes in handy because you're able to go through these really fast. 8 over 15 does not simplify. So that is your final answer in this case. So when you multiply fractions, you go straight across. Let's do some more examples. Alright, so these are going to be some of the examples we're going to do, and don't worry, we're going to zoom in when we do some of them as well. Okay, so if we have 1 over 2 times 4 over 5. 1 over 2 times 4 over 5. I'm just writing it right on top of that one. You're going to multiply straight across. So, going straight across, I'll even draw little arrows to remind you. Straight across. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 5 is 10. So you have 4 over 10. Your job is now just make sure if it simplifies, you need to do that. So 4 over 10 does simplify. So 2 goes into both of those, so it turns into 2 over 5. So 4 over 10 turns into 2 over 5. And that's your answer to number 1. Alright, so let's take a look at number 2. Hit pause and do this one yourself if you think you already understand it. Alright, so going straight across. 1 times 3 is 3. 9 times 5 is 45. So you have 3 over 45. Well, 3 over 45, that does simplify. And here's how you would check. Nothing goes into 3. So you know the 3, nothing can go into 3, but you at least have to check to see if 3 goes into 45. In this case, 3 does go into 45. So we're going to simplify by dividing top and bottom by 3. And then if you do that, you end up with 1 over 15. So that answer simplifies to 1 over 15. And that's your final answer for that one. So take a look at some of our questions. Questions like number 3, we're starting to get some big numbers. 24 times 20 on the bottom, that's going to be a really big fraction. It might be really hard to simplify. And I think you may have had experiences in the past where you had fractions with really large numbers on top or bottom, and they were difficult to simplify. So, and the same thing goes definitely for number 9. 13 times 27 or 9 times 26, those become really big. So what I want to talk to you guys about is I want to introduce you to the shortcut. So before we do those, I'm going to give you an example where you can use this shortcut. And I'm going to give you some info right now. Because this shortcut, by the way, only works in multiplying. So a lot of times when we're multiplying fractions or fraction operations, sometimes we get afraid. But here's the thing. We're going to use a shortcut. And this shortcut is going to make it to where it is going to turn multiplying fractions with large numbers into so much easier. So you won't need to freak out anymore. Alright, so I've got this on the yellow line paper because this is something I definitely think you should definitely look into writing. So we're going to do an example. I'm going to show you how to use the shortcut when multiplying fractions. So for example, the fraction we have over here, we have some rather large numbers that we would have to deal with. And by the way, if you did not use the shortcut, I don't want you to write down how to do it without the shortcut. I'm going to show you what would happen if we didn't. So if you didn't use a shortcut, again, don't write this down without the shortcut, you would get 84 over 224. You're not alone if you think that would be tough to simplify. Obviously, if they're even numbers, you would simplify by 2. But then you would have to keep simplifying by 2 until you were done. So it's hard to simplify these right away. So we're not going to do it that way. I'm going to teach you a shortcut. And this shortcut has many names. The shortcut is sometimes referred to as dividing out common factors. Sometimes it's called cross-canceling. Sometimes it's called cross-simplifying. So I'm going to list each of those. So this shortcut's referred to by many names. In fact, I'm sure there may be another one. These are just the ones I've heard it called. Cross-canceling, cross-simplifying, or dividing out common factors. Here's what you're going to do. What all those have in common pretty much, just say cross, is we're going to be looking at things that are diagonal. So we're looking at things that are diagonally away from each other, and we're going to treat those almost as if they were a fraction. We're going to look to see if they simplify. So for example, look at 7 and 21. We want to see, is there anything that goes into 7 and 21? And in this case, 7 goes into both of them. And here's how we can do this. 7 goes into 7 one time. So 7 becomes a 1. 7 goes into 21 3 times. So 21 becomes a 3. And now, if it only happens in one direction, it only happens in one direction. Now, but you can go ahead, but you want to go ahead and check the other direction as well. Look at 4 and 32. Let's see, does anything go into 4 and 32? Well, 2 goes into 4 and 32, but so does 4. So I'm gonna suggest you choose the biggest thing, because then that way you won't have to do it again. So 4 goes into both 4 and 32. 4 goes into 4 one time, so that becomes a 4. 4 goes into 32 8 times, that becomes an 8. So now look what you have. When you multiply this, rather than multiplying in those really big numbers we had, you can just multiply those numbers. So up top, 1 times 3, well 1 times 3 is 3. On bottom, 1 times 8, 1 times 8 is 8. So we get 3 over 8. Now that's our final answer, and that is a whole lot better than what we had before. So that was a whole lot better than having 84 over 224, I think it was, because that eventually would have simplified down to 3 over 8, but that's a lot of extra work. And a lot of times, we tend to make mistakes sometimes when simplifying those very large fractions. So be confident, and when you're doing this, you're going to look diagonally to see what simplifies. So now we're going to do some examples where we use the shortcut, because this shortcut is your best friend. So it's not mandatory to use the shortcut, but we're going to go ahead and use it on these 3 examples. We're going to show how we can make our lives a lot easier by using the shortcut. Okay, so start with number 3. And if you think you already have the hand of it, hit pause and try number 3 first. Alright, so look at things that are diagonally. So we're going to start by looking at 24 and 3. So we're going to look to see if 24 and 3 simplify. And they do. In this case, 3 goes into both of them. And by the way, it won't always be one of these numbers that goes into the other one. That won't always happen. But when it does, great. So 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 24 8 times. So 24 becomes an 8. Now let's go in the other direction. 15 and 20. Good. Finally have an example where it wasn't one of those numbers. 5 goes into both of those. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 goes into 20 4 times. So now when you multiply straight across, we have much smaller numbers to deal with. Up top we have 3 times 1. Well, that's just 3. And on bottom we have 8 times 4. 8 times 4 is 32. 3 over 32. And in most cases, if you cross-simplify it all the way with the biggest numbers you could, you generally won't have to simplify again. So 3 over 32, that's going to be your final answer. That is a fully simplified answer for multiplying those fractions. And as a note, for those of you that maybe wanted to make sure it was the same thing if you did not use your shortcut, if you up top did 15 times 3, you'd get 45. And on the bottom, 24 times 20, that's going to be 480. So if you did not use the shortcut, you would have 45 over 480. And you would just have to slowly simplify that down until you got all the way down to 480. Maybe you'd simplify by 5, but maybe you would realize that maybe 5 works, or you might realize 15 goes into these, but that's not something I expect a lot of us is easy for us to know right away. So that's why the shortcut is our friend, because we went straight to our final answer. We didn't have to worry about simplifying. Alright, try number 6 if you haven't done so already. Alright, so we're going to look at 10 and 5 first. 5 goes into both of those. 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 goes into 10 two times. And now let's look at the other direction. They're both 9s. Oh, so that's definitely easy. We know 9 goes into 9 one time. 9 goes into 9 one time, so those both turn into 9s. Now when you multiply straight across, up top you have 1 times 1 is 1. On bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. So you have 1 over 2. So your answer is half. And that's your final simplified answer to number 6. Alright, number 9. Don't freak out just because it has a negative. You just ask yourself, what is a negative times a positive? Well, if you don't know, check out that video on integer operations. But a negative times a positive is a negative. Now that you know it's a negative, you can ignore it. That's easy. You're done with that. Now just worry about multiplying. I suggest you use the cross-canceling, cross-simplifying shortcut. 13 and 26, that's what we're looking at. 13 goes into both of those, so that's convenient. 13 goes into 13 one time, and into 26 two times. Now, going in the other direction, 9 goes into both of those. So we're getting lucky that one of those numbers is going into them because it makes it smaller. 9 goes into 9 one time, 9 goes into 27 three times. So now multiply straight across. We already know it's going to be negative, so you can leave that alone. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. So negative 2 over 3. That's our final answer, simplified all the way. Now, I went ahead and wrote what these fractions would have been if you did not use a shortcut. These great big numbers you would have gotten over here, and you then would have had to go through all the hassle trying to simplify those down all the way. And that can become a lot of work, and sometimes it feels so hard that you don't want to do it because you see all those steps you have to do. But the truth is, if you learn this shortcut, multiplying fractions is no big deal. Alright, to make sure we have this multiplying fraction thing, which is basic fractions, give 4, 5, 7, and 8 a try. And then hit pause and give these a shot, and then check your answers. I'll give them to you one at a time. That's number 4. That's number 5, using the fraction shortcut. That's number 7, using the fraction shortcut. And notice, you can't always use the shortcut in all directions. Sometimes it only works in one direction. Or sometimes in number 4, you can't use it in any of the directions, that there is no shortcut to use. So for number 7, you end up with 3 over 22. Try number 8 if you haven't done so already. Okay, and that's your answer for number 8, multiplying straight across. Alright, so at this point, we've done a lot of examples of multiplying fractions, which is basic fractions. We're now going to do a few examples with some mixed numbers, some whole numbers, and then we're going to talk about dividing. Because, by the way, we spent more time about multiplying, and the hint is dividing questions become multiplying questions. So that's why we're spending more time focusing on multiplying, and then I'll show you how to turn all dividing into multiplying. We'll get to that. Alright, so if you're multiplying with things that don't look like regular old fractions, I'm going to give you some tips so that you're going to feel like you'll realize you'll be able to turn all these into stuff you can already do. So for questions like number 10 and number 11 and number 15 and 14 partially, if you have a fraction times a whole number, or I guess technically that's negative, so technically that's an integer, but in other words, a fraction times what looks like a non-fraction, you can easily make that other number a fraction by making its denominator a 1. And many of you already knew that. If you need a denominator, make it 1. Same thing goes for number 11. Make that 7 over 1. For number 15, make that 14 over 1. And for number 14, make that 12 over 1. So now look, now they're all fractions. So that's tip number 1. When you're multiplying and dividing, you need fractions if you're dealing with fractions. So put it over 1 if you need it to be a fraction. Okay, so your second tip is that you're going to need for these questions. When multiplying and dividing, you can't do it with mixed numbers. And remember, that's a mixed number, that's a mixed number, that's a mixed number, and that's a mixed number. You can't do it with mixed numbers. But here's the thing. You can use your skills to convert those mixed numbers, convert those into improper fractions. So let me show you what I mean by that. So for example, if you had 2 and 4/5, here's how you convert 2 and 4/5. I'm going to do that really big down here so you can see that, and then I'm going to erase it. Okay, if you have a mixed number and you need to convert it to an improper fraction, here's what you do. You take the bottom number and you multiply it by the big number. And then you take that answer and you add it to the top. So that's basically what we're going to do. So 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 4 is 14. So you get a 14 on top and the bottom stays the same. That's how you convert that mixed number to an improper fraction. If you're not sure if you did it correctly, double check. 5 goes into 14. Let's see. 5, 10, 15. Okay, it's not 3 times. It goes into it 2 times with a remainder of 4. So 2 and 4 and the bottom stays the same. 2 and 4/5. Well, look, that's what we started with. So we definitely converted that correctly. So what you're going to do for each of these, you're going to convert all these mixed numbers to improper fractions first. So if you want to do all these at once, go ahead and do that step first. But I'm going to show you each of these kind of one by one. Alright, so we're going to do number 10, number 11 first. And I already gave you a hint how to set these up. Put them over 1. But now it's going to be just like the questions we've already done. You're going to multiply straight across, but just keep track of your negative skills. And number 10, we have a negative times a negative. Well, a negative times negative is a positive. So you know the answer is positive, so you can ignore that now. So you're going to end up with 4 times 5, that's 20. And the bottom, you're going to have 9 times 1, well, that's 9. That's an improper fraction. We've got to turn that into a mixed number. 9 goes into 20 2 times. That puts us at 18. So that's a remainder of 2, and it stays over 9. So 2 and 2/9. That's our final answer for number 10. Now for number 11, I see an opportunity to use the cross-canceling shortcut. So even though these aren't big numbers, I'm going to use it anyways. But if you didn't use the shortcut, you would end up with 14 over 7. 14 over 7, you could divide top and bottom by 7. That top 7 goes into both those, so you end up with 2 over 1. And 2 over 1 just equals 2. That's if you didn't use the shortcut. Now, if you did use the shortcut, you can go ahead and simplify those 7s that are diagonal. 7 goes into 7 one times. 7 goes into 7 one times. So now multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2. On the bottom, 1 times 1 is 1. 2 over 1, well, that's just 2. So we got the exact same answer, just with a little bit less work. So that's the shortcut version. All right, so that's number 10 and number 11. Okay, so for 12 and 15, follow my hint first. Turn both of those mixed numbers into improper fractions first. That's what you're going to do. Turn them into improper fractions first. All right, so I rewrote them both, turning those mixed numbers into improper fractions. So start with number 12. We do not get to use the shortcut, so just go straight across. Multiplying straight across, we get 14 over 15. 14 over 15 does not simplify, so that's our final answer for number 12. Now let's look at the one at the bottom. So 1 and 17, we can't cross-cancel that way, but we can the 7 and the 14. 7 goes to 7 once, 7 goes into 14 twice. So now going straight across, we'll have smaller answers to deal with. 2 times 17 is 34. And on the bottom, 1 times 1 is 1. So that's just 34. So our answer is 34 to that question. I haven't remembered to keep telling you, but you definitely want to tell you now. Hit pause, try these 2 questions, do them yourself first. And I'll reveal the answers one at a time. Hit pause. All right, turns into 9 over 2 times 1 over 3. I'm going to use a cross-canceling shortcut. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. So now we have a much simpler question. Up top, 3 times 1 is 3. On bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. We have 3 over 2. That's an improper fraction. All we got to do is turn it into a mixed number and we're all done. 2 goes into 3 one time with a remainder of 1, so it's 1.5. And that's our answer. And again, if the shortcut's still kind of bugging you a little bit, you don't have to use it. If you didn't use the shortcut and you went straight across on the top, 9 times 1 is 9. Straight across on the bottom, 2 times 3 is 6. You'd have 9 over 6. That would turn into 1 with a remainder of 3 over 6. And then 3 over 6 would simplify to half as well. So you would still end up with the same answer. But that's just not, it just requires a little bit of extra work because you're not using the shortcut. Try number 14 if you have not done so already. Turns into 23 over 4 times 12 over 1. I'm going to use a cross-canceling shortcut because I definitely want to avoid doing 23 times 12. I don't want to have to deal with that. 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 goes into 12 3 times. So now you have a little bit smaller numbers to have to deal with. So on the top, you're still going to have to do 23 times 3. You're not going to be able to get around that one. But that's okay. 23 times 3, that's going to give us 69. So we have 69 over 1 times 1 on the bottom is 1. Well, that just equals 69. So that's our final answer to that question. Okay, so we talked about multiplying fractions, and as a brief recap, we said multiply straight across. We did a bunch of examples, and I even taught you the shortcut multiplying fractions. This guy is your friend. Trust me, you want to use it for larger fractions. And so we did some examples. We did numerous examples using the shortcut. And you saw that the shortcut allowed us to avoid these really big fractions that we didn't have to deal with, and that was very, very nice. And then we did some more examples. We did some tips. Did some more examples. So we've definitely talked about multiplying fractions. So now we're going to talk about dividing fractions. But dividing fractions is going to be a lot easier because it turns into a multiplying question. Let me show you what I mean. When dividing by fractions, all dividing by fractions questions, they turn into a multiplying question because what you do is you flip the one you're dividing by. Let me show you an example of what I mean real fast on this screen. So if you had 9 over 10 divided by 2 over 3, the way you do this is you convert this question. The one that you're dividing by, meaning the 2 over 3, the one you're dividing by, you flip it. So this question converts to the 9 over 10. The first number always gets left alone. You're going to keep that number. You're going to change the division to multiplying, so it's become 9 over 10. But now you flip the one you're dividing by. Do not flip the first fraction. If you flip the 9 over 10, your answer is going to be upside down. If you don't flip either, your answer is going to be upside down in a different way. So you want to be very careful to make sure you're flipping the proper one. You always flip the one you're dividing by. Anyways, now that you flipped it, look at this. It's now a multiplication question. So literally, you're going to do everything that we've been talking about with multiplying fractions, all of this stuff. You're going to use all of that for these questions. You can cross simplify, you can do any of that, as long as you flip the second one first, and now it's a multiplying problem. So 9 times 3 is 27, 10 times 2 is 20, that's an improper fraction, convert it to a mixed number, and you're done, which would be 1 and 7/20, by the way. So when dividing by fractions, you literally flip it, and it's now a multiplying question. You are ready to go, and it's using all those skills we just spent all this time talking about. It's going to use all of these. That's the beauty of dividing by fractions, is it becomes a multiplying question, and you're ready to go. That we already know how to do. But here's the key, though. Many of you are going to forget this. You're going to forget which one to flip. I'm already telling you now. I've seen it all the time. You always flip the one you're dividing by, meaning the one that comes second. 100% of the time. That's the only one you flip. Alright, so these are the examples we're going to do for dividing fractions. We're going to pull from each of these, and don't worry, we'll zoom in, we'll do each of them individually, so we have time to do each of them. Now, I'm going to point out, I'm not going to explain the multiplying portion of these questions in depth. I'm mostly just going to do it while hitting pause, but I am going to make sure I explain the dividing portion. But because of the multiplying question, you're going to use all the skills you used earlier in this video. Alright, so let's start with that first one. 7 divided by 3 over 7. So first things first, pretend that that's a fraction by putting it over 1, just like we talked about for the same reason as the last one. Alright, so we're ready to rock and roll. We're going to convert this so that we're essentially going to do something called keep, change, flip. KCF, keep, change, flip. We're going to keep the first number. I don't care if the first number is a negative or whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you keep it. So that 7 over 1 stays 7 over 1. I meant to do that in black. So that stays as 7 over 1. Okay, now you change, as in you change that division to a multiplication. So it becomes a multiplying problem. Now here's the part that everyone's going to forget, and I'm warning you now. Flip the second one. That's vital that you flip the correct one. So that becomes 7 over 3. Now you're ready to multiply this question, and that's something we've already talked about, so make sure you can get that answer. Alright, so you end up with 49 over 3. You can go ahead and divide that. You get 16 with a remainder of 3. So that means 16 with a remainder of 3 goes up top. Oh, I said that wrong. Not remainder of 3. I'm silly. It's a remainder of 1. That's what I meant to say. Alright, so remainder of 1, so it's going to be 16 and 1/3. That's your final answer to this question. 16 and 1/3. That's the answer to this one. Okay, we're now going to number 8 and number 11. And you're going to do the same thing. For both of these, flip them both at the same time. I'm going to set them both up right now to make sure we're clear on how to do that. You always only flip the second one that you're dividing by. Okay, so I just set up both of them. Now use your multiplying skills to find the answers to both of these. So if you haven't already done so, hit pause and give these a shot. For number 8, we get positive 9 over 14. Now for number 11, we have a positive divided by a negative, or positive divided by, or multiplied, or divided by a negative. Doesn't matter. If the signs are different, the answer is going to be negative. So I'm doing number 11 right above it. So the answer is going to be negative. Now I'm definitely going to use a cross-canceling shortcut. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 10 twice, 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 12 4 times. So now we're ready to do it straight across. 4 times 2 is 8, and then 1 times 1 is 1, so that's just negative 8. And that's our final answer to number 11. Alright, so for each of these questions, first thing we're going to do is like we did multiplying. You're going to put these over 1, and then you're going to turn those mixed numbers into proper fractions first. Once you do that, you're going to be ready to do it. So hit pause and give these a shot. Just make sure you flip the second one. But I am going to warn you, for number 12, it's going to get tricky. You're going to turn that mixed number to an improper fraction first, and then you're going to flip it. So we'll do that one together maybe, but try number 9 first. So number 9 sets like this. We turn the 8 and 1/3 into turn that mixed number to an improper fraction. Then we divide by a fraction, so we flip it, and then it becomes a multiplying question. So this is how you set up number 9. Use your cross-canceling shortcut, and you'll have your answer. You don't have to use a shortcut, but I suggest it. And our final answer ended up being 1 2/3. Now for number 12, I said I'd give you a hint before you did it, just to make sure we're clear. We're going to turn 3 3/4 into an improper fraction before we flip. Okay, so the 5 over 1 is not going to change. All right, so I'm still going to write the divided by. We're not going to flip anything yet. We're just going to convert it. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 3 is 15. So 15 over 4. So our question really says 5 over 1 divided by 15 over 4. That's what we're really working with here. Now you're ready to do the keep, change, flip. You're now ready to flip the one you're dividing by. Go ahead and do that. And now that you flipped it, you're ready to use your shortcut if you want to, but go ahead and multiply these fractions. We end up with 4 over 3, and 4 over 3 simplifies down to 1 1/3. And that's going to be our final simplified answer to that division question. Alright guys, I hope I'm starting to make a point. All these division questions, once you flip the one you're dividing by, every single one of them turns into a multiplying question. So focus on the skill of what we're talking about. Flipping the one that you're dividing by. That is critical. So we've done 1, 2, 3, and we did the one in the beginning. So 4, 5, 6. We did 6 examples together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you try the rest of them on this screen, and then I'm going to reveal those answers one by one. I'm not really going to explain them, but this is your chance to get a little bit of extra practice if you think you need it. And some of these questions get a little bit more difficult. That's what the rest of the video is going to be. But at this point, we've done a ton of examples. So you're going to try the rest of these, and like I said, I'm going to reveal the answers one at a time so you can give them a shot. Steps and work for number 13. Here are steps and work for number 16. Now I'm going to show you the answers to 14 and 17. Work and answer for number 14. Make sure that you convert it to an improper fraction first before you flip it. And that's our work and answer for number 17. Give these ones a shot. Convert it first to an improper, now flip. And that's number 15. So for this one, you had to convert both of them to improper fractions. Now you're ready to flip the second one and it becomes multiplying. You end up with a final answer of negative 2 and 11/17. Alright, now we do 19 and 20. Convert them both, and now flip the second one. Alright, last but not least, I'm going to make 20 the last one and give you the answer to, because I think you've done enough examples at this point. You've converted them both to improper, now flip the second one only. Okay, so we've done a ton of examples of multiplying, and now we just did examples of dividing. So the key to dividing is, remember, flip the second one, and now it's a multiplying question using all the skills we talked about when multiplying fractions. So if you have a whole number like we had right here, you're going to put it over 1, then you're ready to go. If you have negatives, keep track of your negative skills. If you have mixed numbers, you turn those mixed numbers into improper fractions first. And we did plenty of examples of each of those. Okay, guys, so we've now done a ton of examples of multiplying and dividing fractions. Make sure you practice these. This video included a ton of examples. Feel free to do some of them again if you need to without looking at the answers. And make sure you understand how to multiply and divide fractions, because that's what this part was all about. You are more than prepared with tons of examples. Move forward, take charge, be confident. Every single fraction question where you multiply and divide are using these skills, guaranteed. Take your time, stick to the basics, and you can be confident in the steps you're taking. Take care, and good luck.